Hey there, it's Erica with Kinfolk Chat. Today we're going to look at your DNA portal, advanced ancestry analysis, Laniakea global results.
Laniakea offers a completely new perspective on ancestry analysis, while providing an accurate individual autosomal analysis. It avoids referencing modern political and national boundaries. The purpose of Laniakea is to better define the genetic identity of each individual, which often transcends national or regional identity. Laniakea Global. The first version of the Laniakea test is a global test. This will be followed by the release of other detailed regional versions, which will offer the most complete analysis available. Admixture. Your admixture results are derived directly from the S and Ps present in your file. They reveal the percentages that you share with the principal components of the populations present in the calculator, based on the frequency of alleles.
Taking a look at the admixture population and the percentage, we see African Niger Congo at 65.38%, African Swahili 21.45%, African Rainforest 5.27%, European Scandic 2.64%, European Brittonic Gaelic 2.24%, European Eastern 1.47%, MENA Maghrebi 0.85%, African Khoisan 0.18%, Native American Central 0.15%, Oceanian 0.15%, African Nilotic 0.11%, and European Atlantic 0.11%.
African Niger Congo, 65.38%. The African Niger Congo component has its peak in West Africa, roughly from Cameroon to Senegal. However, due to ancient migrations, the component is widespread and common in much of sub-Saharan Africa, albeit with very different relevance and percentages. African Swahili, 1.45%. The African Swahili component has its peak in the Bantu-speaking peoples of East Africa, particularly Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. However, since the Bantu peoples are genetically rather similar to Central Western Africans due to historical migratory reasons, and since the Eastern Bantu are mixed with Nilotic and Cushitic components in Primus, the component is widespread and common in much of sub-Saharan Africa, even if in very different proportions, and a compound associated to different components. African Rainforest, 5.27%. The African rainforest component has its peak in frequency among the pygmy populations that inhabit the forests of Congo and the Central African Republic. However, it is widespread and common in most of the Bantu peoples and the Gulf of Guinea. European Scandic, 2.64%. The European Scandic component has its peak frequency in north-central Scandinavia, particularly in western Finland, Sweden, and north-central Norway. However, it is widespread and common in much of Central and Northern Europe. European Brittonic Gaelic, 2.24%. The European Brittonic Gaelic component has its frequency peak in the peoples of Scotland and Ireland, but it is widespread and common throughout northwestern Europe from Scandinavia to Brittany passing through the North Sea basin. To a lesser extent, it is also common in other areas of Europe. European Eastern, 1.47%. The European Eastern component has its frequency of peak in European Russia, but is widespread and common in much of Central Eastern Europe and parts of Northern Europe and Central Asia. MENA Maghrebi, 0.85%. The Middle East and North Africa MENA Maghrebi component has its peak in Northwest Africa, but is widespread and common in Northeast Africa, Southern Europe, especially Iberia, and in some groups of Sub-Saharan Africa and the Middle East. African Khoisan, 0.18%. The African Khoisan component has its frequency peak in southern and southwestern Africa, but is widespread and common also in some populations of eastern Africa. Native American Central, 0.15%. The Native American Central component has its frequency peak in the descendants of the Mayan and Aztec peoples. However, it is widespread and common in all the Americas. Oceanian, 0.15%. The Oceanian component has its peak in frequency from the indigenous Maori and Aboriginal peoples to the Melanesians and Polynesians. However, the component is widespread and common among the Austronesian peoples. African Nilotic, 0.11%. The African Nilotic component has its peak frequency in South Sudan and neighboring areas, but is widespread and common in much of eastern and northeastern Africa. It is also quite common among some populations of central western Africa and the Sahel. European Atlantic, 0.11%. The European Atlantic component has its peak among the Basque people, but is widespread and common throughout Western Europe, especially the French Atlantic coast, from the Pyrenees to Vendée, and Spain, from the Pyrenees to Galicia.
The next section shows closest population distances. It says your autosomal profile closely resembles the following genetic clusters present in our database. Number 1 is Guinean Gulf. Number 2 is Bantu Congo and Cameroon. Number 3 is Bantu Southern African. The next section is summary origins, ideal for those wanting a concise and effective estimate. The results obtained with this run are intended to capture your main genetic clusters. So here we show Bantu Congo and Cameroon, 25%, Bantu Southern African, 25%, Guinean Gulf, 25%, and Senegambian, 25%. Next, in-depth origins, designed to emphasize your unique inheritance. The results obtained with this run aim to capture even the subtlest traces of your autosomal composition. Here we have Guinean Gulf, 51%, Senegambian, 15.5%, Bantu Congo and Cameroon, 13.5%, Bantu Southern African, 9.5%, Southeastern African, 5.5%, Northern Celto-Germanic, 1%, Baltic, 0.5%, Eastern Germanic, 0.5%, Eastern Siberian, 0.5%, Melanesian, 0.5%, Northern Amerindian, 0.5%, Northern Italian, 0.5%, Pygmy Rainforest, 0.5%, and Polynesian, 0.5%. Pinpoint. The results obtained with this run are intended to emphasize not only your main genetic clusters, but also a detailed estimate of the minor components, albeit with greater degree of approximation than the in-depth run. Here we have Guinea and Gulf, 48%, Bantu, Congo, and Cameroon, 23%, Senegambian, 15%, Bantu, Southern African, 4%, Southeastern African, 3%, Eastern Germanic, 1%, Japanese, 1%, Khoisan, Hunter-Gatherer, 1%, Northeastern Indian and Bangladeshi, 1%, Northern Celto-Germanic or Celto-Germanic, 1%, Northern Slavic, 1%, and Pygmy Rainforest, 1%. Here I went ahead and pulled up some results from MyHeritage DNA and WeGene.com, and we're going to look at its comparison to your DNA portal. So here we have MyHeritage with Nigerian, and it shows up here on WeGene. And then you have WeGene with Bantu South African, and then Khoisan over on your DNA portal. Then you have MyHeritage with Kenyan, WeGene with Somali, and your DNA portal shows African Swahili and African Nilotic. Next, we have MyHeritage with North African, and then portal shows Maghrebi. Next, MyHeritage with Central African, WeGene with Mbuti, and portal shows Congo and African rainforest. Up next, we have MyHeritage with Scandinavian, Irish, Scottish, and Welsh, WeGene with English, and portal shows European Scandic, Brittonic Gaelic, and European Atlantic. WeGene shows Hungarian, and then portal shows European Eastern. WeGene shows Native American, and portal shows American Central. And then here, WeGene shows Papuan, and portal shows Oceanian. MyHeritage also shows Sierra Leonean. Of course, it is a West African country that also borders other West African countries, including Liberia as well as Guinea. So it's a part of that West African ancestry that I have. And that, my friends, is it for this video. Please make sure to leave a comment if you have any comments about the results that you've seen in this video. Also, make sure to like this video. Make sure to share this video. And if you're not subscribed, make sure to subscribe. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.